You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 274 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by HandsOnGloves, the all-in-one revolutionary bathing, grooming, shedding gloves. The Horsemanship Radio crew is out and about gathering content for upcoming episodes, so sit back and enjoy this classic from 2018.
And today we have two horsewomen who are not afraid to explore difficult paths and bring their stories back to share with us. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to the Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st and the 15th of the month. And I have my producer, Jen, with me today. How are you?
Greetings, Debbie. How are you doing? I'm doing great.
Good. We went out on a limb with technology, didn't we? And we called all the way to the Patagonia region of Argentina.
You know, we call all over the world, and Argentina, Patagonia region, it was a first.
It was a first. Yeah. I think I put Glenn on that precarious moment, but but we pulled it off. It was great. It was a few attempts before I finally got this interview in the can, as they say, because this lady is just amazing. Stevie Anna, going across the wilds where there is nothing, and then she'll say, "I've got one. I've got internet connection." So, it was pretty cool, and I think people are going to love what she says. But
it's pretty amazing
anyway.
How we get to talk to people from all over the globe.
It is, but what's going on in your part of the globe?
Well, let's see what's going on in our part of the globe. Oh, we have Pablo stories. We haven't had Pablo stories in quite some time. Oh, we have dog barking too,
and you have dog stories too. Yeah, what's going on with Pablo? I love hearing about Pablo.
We've got Pablo stories. I'm in charge of taking care of Pablo for a little while his mommy and daddy are taking some much needed time off and having a little vacation.
Good.
So I get to play with Pablo. And Pablo, for people who have not listened for a long time to the Horsemanship Radio show, Pablo is our next door neighbor's horse, and our horses and our next door neighbor horses share the facility here.
Right.
So we get to hang out with each other and talk to each other. And Pablo came with issues. He's a very high energy horse and has a very high flight reflex. So he had issues, and I really started down the path of the language of Equus because of Pablo. Right. I needed to find a way to get through to him because he was one of those horses that he didn't even want you to catch him. The only way you could catch him, like to bring him in to feed him or to put fly spray on him, or if he needed medical attention, was luck of the draw, or if you had a can of grain in your hand. And then it was even then it was a little dicey.
Really?
So he came that way as an adult. So I started to explore the concepts of Monty's join up, and without round penning and without training and things like that. He's not my horse. I'm not training him, but I worked on my use of that language because of him. Right. And I got good enough at it that he started to recognize that I'm not a predator. And we have made great strides in our relationship in that for the most part, he doesn't see me as a predator anymore, which is yay, great. And he's doing wonderful things with his owner now because he really trusts her much better.
Oh, good. Both of you.
Yeah,
that's great.
But he still hangs on to his phobia about having his feet taken care of. He came with that too.
All right.
Has a lot of scarring on his legs, which I suspect may have been caused by inappropriate use of training tools.
Oh.
Yeah. But he's got a problem with one of his hooves, an abscess or cold summer sore or some such that needs to be bandaged on a daily basis. So it kind of hurts. Doesn't want to have his foot picked up. So a little frustrating. So I went out and I put his dually halter on. He has his very own dually halter. And I rewatched the schooling in the dually video over there on Monty Roberts University to make sure I got it right. And 2 days in a row when I had to take care of his foot, I schooled him with his dually halter on. And day one, we progressed within a span of about 15 minutes to hold our foot up politely and get it doctored.
Good.
Day two, schooled for maybe 3 minutes because he starts out all jostly and silly. Maybe 3 minutes. Oh, I remember what we did yesterday. Really good. And now on day 4, bring him out and put his dually halter on. We walk back and forth Few steps forward, few steps back, few steps left, few steps right.
Does he does the dually dance with you a little bit? He's following it.
He kind of expects it. He looks at me like, oh, we do this, right? We do this first. And he will stand in the aisleway with the lead rope just hanging over his neck, perfectly still, while I take care of that foot that needs to be bandaged and washed and all that. Don't tie him. He just stands there. And it's a huge win because he comes over, he takes a deep breath, and he kind of goes, oh, I've got this. It's not going to hurt. You're in charge. You've got this. You're not going to hurt me. And it happens. And it's because I took the time to watch the video, learn how to do it properly, and then applied it. Yay.
And he has tremendous trust because when they're in pain like that too, to actually give it up to you, you know that, Yeah.
And it stings. It's an open wound. So it stings and I have to put medication on it, which probably stings too. And I try to be cognizant of the fact that it stings. And okay, I'm going to spray it on there, and then we're going to immediately go for a walk for 4 steps because he needs to get that out of him.
Yeah.
Rather than
like swinging your finger when you slam it.
And rather than restricting his flight, right? Okay, you're allowed to express that. You're allowed to walk. We're going to walk together, and then we're going to turn around and stop again. And that was key because I didn't get my head around that. Oh, you need to stand still and just put up with it. No, let's give this horse a chance to express himself. And it made a huge difference. So yay university, yay videos.
Yay, Jen. No, really fair to the horse. I mean, when we say be fair to the horse, there's a lot that goes in behind that, but it really means understand the horse. And if you think of them like your kid, they can only stand still for so long. They need to express themselves too, which they're not trying to be nefarious or, buck your discipline or something. So you when it's safety involved, they must stand still, but to make them stand too long or to, if it's fairer to let them move a little bit after doctoring like that, do it. And I love that little thing you just slipped in there about letting them not feel constricted. We were just talking about this. The not feeling constricted builds the confidence in the horse. So I hear him becoming more confident in you, but also becoming more confident in his environment and himself.
Yes, because he's one of those horses that is literally, this is no exaggeration, he will spook at his own shadow. And he has spooked at his own shadow. Yeah.
So adorable. As long as you stay on, they're adorable. You're adorable, and you make sure you're on the non-spook side. But it has made a big difference. You're right. Us as humans learning to recognize when, okay, this horse needs to be allowed to express this versus this is a moment when the horse needs to learn self-control in that, okay, he's trying to move his feet all around, and I'm going to school him in his halter and have some forward and back steps. Which of those moments is this? And I'm getting a little bit better at recognizing that because he challenges me to, because, there's a way to get around this. I don't need a chain. I don't need to get mad at him. I just need to become a better observer and apply the appropriate response. And I'm getting a little bit better at that because he is such a challenge. And thank you, Jamie, for inspiring me to do that. It's cool. Yeah, that's very cool. And the other thing I hear people say sometimes in rebut to this whole thing about letting them express themselves a little bit too, people will go, well, but if he gets loose, then you know what? You get a longer lead, because if they do need to express, we use a 30-foot long line. If we've got a green horse that may just like, pop, be afraid of everything he just saw yesterday. It's all new. But leads in 12 feet would be the shortest that I would work with a green horse, or a horse that comes with phobias that you don't even know what they are yet, or a 17-foot, we just don't even believe in the 6-footers or 8-footers. Maybe it's because of everything that comes through our gate, but
you don't get any quiet made. Yeah. You don't get those kind at your house. No,
just the babies, but anything where, like, especially a loading, this is one where I really see people making mistakes, because he who moves the feet, first loses, right? With the horses, everybody knows this, right? If a horse starts to take off and you start to be pulled along with him, you're going to lose that fight, right? So if you can let them go, like if you got the dually halter, like you just explained, that does the little twist thing when it comes to them tightening up on it, it's just like a twist in your sock. We've talked about this before. It's just a little discomfort level. They'll come right off of that. It's not pain. It's not chain. It's not a fight. It's just something that's uncomfortable. If you've got 30 feet in your hand and they let they don't usually express themselves 30 feet. They'll go 10 feet or something and they'll stop. But as soon as they make themselves lean into that pressure, they'll come off of it. And you're still holding, standing there, not moving your feet. And
his owner, and she is so patient. She's really, really, really good at recognizing when his little brain is full.
Yeah, good. Oh, that's so good.
She's really good at incremental. And that's made a big difference in this horse, is the increments.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, he needs his life broken down into teeny tiny little Cheerios size pieces. And
one other thing I heard too that you did well is it sounds like he is what we call latent learning, which is it's a funny concept.
Yes,
we
explain
really
that.
believe. Do you know that? Yeah, I think they do sleep on these things, and if you wait till their brain is full, and that's good, and you recognize that spot and say, more tomorrow, they come out ahead of yesterday.
Yes,
they do. You watch this and see if I'm wrong. But I think most people agree when they really start, when they do it right, incrementally, like you just explained. And if she's good at that as a new owner, that's brilliant. It really is. I mean, sometimes you can be a little bit behind the curve, but you don't really lose points for that. You just lose a little more time. But if you watch them, recognize that yesterday wasn't a bad experience. It might have been a little new for everybody, and we all had to work really hard to get our brains around it, but they will come out ahead the next day. We call it latent learning because it's almost like they slept on it and went, that was okay.
Right.
I think we'll just start where we left off yesterday, or maybe even ahead of that, because they're much more relaxed and not full at that point. So,
right. And
so it sounds
always
like
gives me a thrill when that happens, regardless of what horse I'm working with and what we did. When you have that moment where you return to a previous lesson that the last time you did it, it was all new, and they go, oh yeah, I got this. That just gives me a thrill, because that means I got it right the first time.
Yeah, exactly, Jen. You're exactly right. And you know what? And people shouldn't beat themselves up if the horse got loose, or, it just wasn't working that day and y'all just went home. That's okay. I like to end on a positive note, whatever that is, but if it doesn't happen, you know what? There's always the next day too. So that's okay. The big goal is no pain, no violence, and really no setbacks that way, because all else is just learning, and failures are the best learning. So that's okay too. We both learn, the horse and us learn at the same time. So it's okay too. You got to know where the boundaries are.
So it's okay to experiment, watch videos, get help from your trusted trainer person, and give it that try. And, it'll encourage your horse to try too.
That's the fun of it. That's our process. And, without that, we're just riding tractors. Come on. That's not fun.
And we've got dogs again. Yay!
Our title sponsor, Hands On Gloves, who support us and are our reason for being here, actually have a little innovation that you were telling me about with Nigel.
Yes, Nigel. This was inspired. I was watching some of the videos over on the Hands On Gloves YouTube page.
That's cool. Yeah.
And it has great ideas for using your Hands On Gloves if you ever want to spend a little time on YouTube, and who doesn't want to do that? In the wintertime, Nigel does not get clipped because his hair coat doesn't really get very thick, and he lives out of doors. It's a very light winter coat, and that's a real struggle in the winter, because you want to get deep down into the hair when you dry them off, because what can happen is you can get rain rot if the top of the hair dries before the skin does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all used towels to dry our horses off. You swipe back and forth, but that's it. It doesn't get to the skin. It only dries the top.
It does.
So you take the old Hands-On Gloves, which you've got on anyway, because that's what you were using to scrub your horse.
You washed it with. Yeah. That's right.
Just grab a towel, toss it on your horse, and you dry the horse using your gloved hand, and those little bumples on the gloves get down between the hairs and dry the skin off. It's awesome.
It's awesome. And they love it. I mean, who doesn't like to be snuggled in a blankie?
If you give them a good once over with a towel and your Hands-On glove, then when you do throw the cooler over top, you've fluffed up all that hair.
Yes.
So that it can allow the moisture from the skin to come up through. If the hair's mushed down flat, it's going to do its job of keeping things just the way they are. So grab yourself a pair of Hands-On Gloves from HandsOnGloves.com or your local tack retailer. You can find them everywhere. They come in lots of different sizes and colors.
Yep.
And give it a try for yourself.
Stevie Anna grew up in the woods of Oregon and the deserts of Texas and now makes the stunning wilderness of Patagonia her home. She loves immersing herself in new cultures and places, having traveled to 49 states in the U.S. while living out of her van with her dog, Darcy, who also accompanied her on the expedition to Patagonia. Well, welcome, Stevie Anna. Where are we hearing you from today? It sounds like I know you're in Argentina.
Yeah, I'm not currently on horseback in the middle of nowhere in Patagonia, as one would think. I'm actually sitting in a cozy little coffee shop in Bariloche, Argentina, Patagonia, on a nice sunny autumn day here.
Beautiful. That's right. We're in the opposite side of the world here. So we have our different seasons upside down. You're such a brave lady. And it's been so fun to follow you in your blog. And I can't wait for people to get to know you a little bit. But you're an explorer, I guess. What do you call yourself? A Gaucha now, or an explorer, or what?
That's so hard. I've actually had that discussion with other adventurers, explorers, kind of, what is a modern day explorer? What does that entail? But yeah, I think I'm more comfortable calling myself a Gaucha.
Yeah, you're a Gaucha. Yeah. And you've got all those Gauchos helping you along on this trip, which has just been fabulous to hear. And I just feel like I've gone back in time to follow your story. One of the things that I'm curious about I know we'll get to how you put these monstrous trips together, but what are we missing when we want to immerse ourselves in a culture, but we pop into an airplane and we fly into an airport and then we go see the culture? What are we missing that you got to see along the way?
That's really tough. I think most of it all comes down to time and really just spending it's even in the small moments, trying to connect with a local person over as we were talking before, yerba mate or a cup of coffee, taking those moments not to actually see a place, but more connect with the people and its culture. And that really is hard to do on a time in a short time frame, which is usually what we have is 2 weeks a year to kind of get all of our traveling in the States. So it was really slow going. It was really slow travel, primarily because the animals can only travel so much per day. So it really gives you a lot of time to kind of sit down and talk with the locals and discover and learn and be a part of that culture over time.
Mm-hmm. So it's 1,000 miles on horseback, 2 horses, and a dog named Darcy. Why did you do it? Why do you do this?
It was funny because I think that the idea came after the fact that I was already kind of going to go. It was more of where life was, or where I was at in life, that the trip kind of evolved. I was down here in Patagonia for the last 2 years guiding backcountry pack trips with a local Gaucha here in the mountains, and just getting to see all of the backcountry here and meet its people. It's just a land to be kind of explored and traveled by horse. It was just totally meant for that. It's all ranches, all the way along the mountains to the southern tip. And so I think just being exposed to that over the last couple of years and seeing how horse travel is and how it opens you up to new places and people, I just realized wow, this is what I want to do. But instead of, in this small little area, go, all the way along the mountains to the south, crossing these ranches and these vast areas. So, yeah.
That is, I have this vision in my mind, and the photos that you take are beautiful. Do you travel alone, or do you have someone go along with you?
No, and this trip I traveled just by myself. There were a couple of mornings that the Gauchos where I would stay camped at, they would, be bored enough to go on the ride with me for an hour or two, accompany an hour or two, just for kicks. But otherwise I was alone with my 2 horses and my dog.
That's amazing. Did you ever get into a pinch? Do you ever worry about does your mom worry about you? Does anybody know where you are and how you're doing?
Only naturally. Yeah. She was constantly worried about me, but But no, and down here, the people are so nice. I feel really safe and no, there was never any kind of situation. All of the gauchos they're very respectful, very traditional kind of person. And so it was really great. And I also had a GPS with me, that's a Garmin InReach that allowed me to send text. And it also sent out my current location every 20 minutes. So my family could actually follow me on this Garmin's website and see where I was at and send me messages if they needed to.
Gotcha. That's just wonderful. I mean, you've got the best of both worlds. You've got old world atmosphere and culture, and you've got technology that protects you. So I'd love to get into the horses a little bit too. I love the history of the Criollo horse that the Spanish explorers left behind hundreds of years ago. It must just be such a great breed. When you were doing the packs, were you using exclusively the Criollo?
Yeah. And down here in Argentina with the accent, we say criollo. So if you hear me say criollo, it's just a different accent. It's not a different breed. But they've used these horses here. I mean, they are the native horse. I mean, they were brought down here, but they were the first horse in this area. So they're just really accustomed to living in the mountains. They're really solid. They can eat, anything. They can go, without water. Mine never had to do that, but I like to say they're kind of the Mustang of the South. They're just super hardy horses.
Yeah. Well, the same thing. I mean, the Spanish explorers did leave the Mustangs, the Mustango behind too. So did you have to prepare them for this trip or did you just pick good horses right out of a string and get going?
I got pretty lucky. They were both very tame whenever I got them. And yeah, I use them. I do guiding here. So we use them on some of the practice trips where I guide before just to see how they did. But they were totally solid horses. They were just excellent. I got super lucky.
Yeah, no, really good. Just a practical item. Do you rotate? Do you ride one horse and then pack with the other and then rotate them? Or how do you do that?
There were days that I switched my riding horse, but I rode primarily, his name was Sundance, or is Sundance. He was now thinking, I only know the colors in Spanish now.
Oh, yeah.
Here they call it a gateado. I think there it might be a buckskin. He was 22 or is 22 years old. And so being the older horse, I used him a little bit more for riding, and my younger horse, Bandido, for the pack horse. He was a lot heavier set and he carried the pack saddle really well. And there were days that I switched, but primarily was that situation. My Sundance was my riding horse, and then Bandido, he followed everywhere. And Sundance, he's a tough horse. I know I could trust him to cross any river or do whatever I needed. And the pack horse would then follow us. So he just made a really good lead horse.
Yeah. And there's no mental prep there for them, but do you mentally have to prepare for these trips? I mean, I know that you put everything in order, but how do you psych yourself up for these, to be alone for that long and to be with your horses and animals?
It's funny because it really was, for me, it was like being in love. This idea, this dream, every single day for the last 2 years, I woke up thinking about it. I went to bed thinking about it. It was just something I had to do. So for me, it was more of this like, okay, let's, mentally prepare that this is not, the reality is not riding the horse up into the sunset. And it's also pretty. It's a lot harder and tougher than that.
Yeah, kidding.
But nothing can really prepare you for the things on the trail. And I think when you don't have the option, you just do. And on the trail, you just learn quickly and you do, what you have to do. And after you get past that learning point, you just enjoy every bit of it. I just loved it.
How long were you out there? How long did
85 days.
85 days. And there's the history of the Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy and that whole thing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the Gaucha that I work with, her grandfather actually was from Texas, and he came down by ship and rode his horse from Buenos Aires down to Bariloche, which is where I currently live, over 1,000 miles by horseback, and set up the first ranch in the area. Now Bariloche is a huge city, but this family, the Jones, had the first ranch here. Butch Cassidy and Sundance, a couple years later, actually heard that there were more Texans down in the area and followed his trail, and they linked up here in Bariloche. And they were friends for a time, but Butch Cassidy and Sundance moved down to a small town called Cholila, where you can actually still visit their old hideout cabins where they were living at a place. And I have pictures of that on my website. It's really fun, a really cool place. And so they were friends for a time until her grandfather had found out that they were stealing cattle from other ranchers. So he kind of put some distance there. But Carol, the Gaucha that I work with, it was her grandfather. She actually has one of the old bits of Butch Cassidy and Sundance at her estancia, at her ranch. It's really interesting.
It would be so interesting. Yeah, Carol Jones, you'll have to look at Stevie's listeners. I'll have to live with Stevie for a while on that blog. It's just amazing. But I thought it was so interesting about the stealing of the cattle. So like, how do they figure that out? Well, there's all these variety of brands that show up in the pastures. That's sort of a dead giveaway. That's why they brand those cattle, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Can you imagine stumbling upon them and then starting to realize it? Yeah, probably time to leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you've traveled 49 states now, I think, in the United States, and you've traveled with Darcy a lot, which is your dog, but you became a centaur, basically. I mean, when anybody who's in the saddle for 85 days must feel part horse when you get off a trip like that. What's the difference? How do you interact with Darcy differently than your horses, who must have become desperately good friends with you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I will say that now I never look at like the landscape or the countryside in the same way. You're always looking at it with the mind of the horse, like, oh, it's really rocky there. Oh, that's really great grass. Oh, there might be water over that hill. It's like your vision of the countryside completely changes. You cannot change your mind from thinking like a horse after being in the saddle for 85 days. It's quite funny.
That's so cool. That's very cool.
It's pretty funny. But as far as my relationship with Darcy, yeah, she's traveled 26 states with me. I got her as a puppy in Alaska, and Argentina is her third country. And she's just my travel companion. She's with me, through thick and thin and always there. And we just have a super solid relationship. And with the horses, it's very respectful, but they don't get to come in and sleep on your tent and warm your toes if you're sleeping back at night. So it's a little different. But with the horses too, it was really funny because the horses feel really safe around Darcy. And I think vice versa, Darcy really, really enjoys protecting everyone and keeping us kind of close together. And so that was cool to see the relationship between Darcy and the horses form and the trust and bond between them. I actually would put Darcy on my pack horse when she was tired, and she would be able to rest up on him when we were walking some days. So it was just really neat to see the kind of team dynamic form over the months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's 2 years in the making, this trip. So I'm so glad that it turned out as beautifully as it did. Our gain as much as yours to be able to see it. So tell us a little bit about what goes on in those 2 years when you're putting something like this together. How do you make a living at this? Everybody who has horses wants to know how you get to do this for a living.
I have to say, living in the States, it's really tricky to have horses. It's expensive, and you have to have a place and everything. And Patagonia is so wild. It's a little bit more easy to keep them here because most of the horses here, they don't live in stables. They live just out in the open field and pastures and on ranches. Some of them have fences, some of them don't. You go spend a day looking for your horse out in the mountains, but they live a very, very rustic, very different kind of life than what we're exposed to in the States with horses. So it is a little easier to maintain a horse because you're not buying and feeding. You just basically have the piece of land where they stay. And then I do a lot of work on the computer. I do a bunch of marketing for other explorers and for outdoor companies. But a little bit of mix of everything that allows me, to be able to do these kinds of trips. But
to do what you love. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what every horse person needs to do is just fight for that, because being around horses is such a is such a healthy thing. It's such a clever thing to do, and it's becoming rare air. So I'm really glad that you get to share your story with us a little bit about just creating some more dreams for people out there. What do you think is one of the surprising things about the trip that you're never asked about?
Ooh, that is such a tough question. Gosh, I don't know. A surprising thing that I'm never asked about.
Yeah, there's usually in a really good story, there's something that you're often wishing that people had asked you about, and it seemed so unique. I think I'm impressed. I'm impressed with your Gaucho lifestyle there and how community is built, how it's traditional, but they live in the modern world and know how to take care.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I think people underestimate like the importance of people on trips like this. One of the reasons that I traveled solo is because it really does force you to get out of your comfort zone. If you travel with a friend, you kind of have that person always there to talk with or to, lean on. And this really pushes you to just kind of get out there and to meet the people and to talk with people. And after a week of not seeing someone, you want to sit down and drink a mate with a gaucho and talk and connect. And so, no, I think it's the people here on the countryside. Like I said, after doing this trip solo, the biggest thing that I took away is how important people are and the kindness and generosity and just the patience and everything that I've seen and been given from the people during that 85 days ride was so special. And it's just a genuine, they just genuinely want to help you. They don't want anything back, and many of them don't have much to give, but they would do absolutely anything for you. And it's the people that know horses, that know animals. And so you arrive there and they know exactly what you need, and they want to talk with you. They want to hear about your trip and vice versa. There are people that travel the land by horse. So it's very interesting getting to talk with them about places. And for them, most of them only know maybe a 5-mile radius of their house in the countryside. So getting to talk to them about the Andes Mountains and, a foreigner's take on their land and talk to them about trails or weather, or horses or gear. It's just something really special to get to share that. And yeah, that just really made the trip very special.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. That did paint a picture in my mind. That was really, really nice. And it makes me want to go there. What's your next trip? Do you have another big one planned?
I do, but it's in the planning. I mean, it'll definitely be something down here in Patagonia. I love the area and I love the history and the culture. And then maybe something up in the States in the future. But for right now, I'm loving the history and the culture of this area. So I kind of want to discover that more and uncover more of the history and the estancias. This was more, of course, that incorporated all the people on this long ride, but this was more over a distance. And I would like to do something more to discover and to storytell, and these different estancias and these different people and the end of the world.
Yes, it is. You really have gone to the very bottom of the earth too. How do people connect with you, Stevie? How do they follow you?
Sure. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Stevie Anna. It's Stevie and Anna with 2 N's. And then also at my website, stevieanna.com.
That's perfect. Well, I hope our listeners will take you up on that and follow you, because it's a lost art, this explore business and the slow down time that people travel. I mean, people used to at least travel by train and slowly see the cultures and the landscapes and the beautiful country that is down there. And nothing is forever. So I hope people will jump in and get a little explorer in them like you do, Stevie Anna. And it was so fun to share with you. I'm so pleased that you could take out some time in a coffee house for us. And
no, thank you so much. And again, my apologies on the background noise. I'm I'm sure people were expecting to hear, I don't know, a guanaco or a puma in the background. Not
I don't think so. We still know it's hard to get internet out on top of a mountain somewhere.
Yeah.
It's here too. But, well, we look forward. I hope we can meet you sometime, and I'd love to have you back.
Yeah, thank you so much, Debbie. I really enjoyed it. I do. I hope to catch up with you again in the future.
Wonderful. We'll do that again on Horsemanship Radio. Thanks. Jamie Jennings was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and she began riding at the age of 6 on her not-so-trustworthy pony, Snowflake. She was bit with a horse bug at an early age and blessed enough to have a wonderfully supportive set of parents. She rode up and down the East Coast with most of her time spent in Lexington, Cleveland, and Southern Pines. At the age of 18 in Lexington, Kentucky, Jamie discovered the sport of eventing, and with the help of several talented coaches, Jamie successfully competed through preliminaries, and her motto is, once you event, you never go back. And she's still doing that to this day. Her life's goal is to compete in every state in the continental U.S. Jamie was a professional broadcaster in Atlanta for 10 years. She began reporting for local Atlanta sports stations and quickly moved up to host multiple morning and afternoon shows on country, top 40, and alternative rock stations. She is now the co-host of Horses in the Morning on Horse Radio Network. Jamie runs a successful boarding and training business called Flyover Farm. Well, welcome, Jamie Jennings. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Just got done unloading some hay and I ran in here to talk to you. So
I appreciate that.
Good.
Or I got you out of it. Either way.
Yeah. Well, it's not getting done. Not getting done by itself. So
I know. Do you buck your own bales? Look at that. They don't put it away for you and everything.
I know.
You're
it's
a celebrity.
Like this husband of mine, like it demands me to do work around. It's weird.
That is the hardest job on earth. Sorry, moving bales around. That was my least favorite, itchiest job ever, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty brutal, but you got to do it. They got to eat.
Yeah, and you've got the guns to prove it. Look at that. You're one tough cookie. I am so glad to have you on today to celebrate the fact that you have passed the Monty Roberts International Learning Center advanced course and exams, most importantly.
Woo-hoo!
Got through your exams. I'm so excited for you. That is one tough thing.
Oh my God. Can I just say, not to deter anybody who's listening to this from doing it, but that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And the sense of satisfaction that you get from doing a good job at something that was that challenging is, I'm a different person. I just feel like I'm so proud of myself and I'm just so happy.
I'm happy for you. And you know what? We wouldn't want it any other way. I mean, I'm so proud of every single, you're not an instructor yet, you're an intern, but I'm so proud of every person that goes through that advanced course. Just to get in the advanced course is not easy. You can go in with very little information about specifically starting a wild horse, let's say. But you might be a great horseman all your life. But that specific information that you end up being tested on puts you in rare air. Because first of all, how many people actually get to do that in their life? I don't care how many horses you've worked with or how long you've worked with horses your whole life. How many people actually start to finish a project horse like you did? Very few. Most people are happy to give them over to trainers to do that crazy work, right?
It's true. I had never, that was kind of always a bucket list thing, was to start a wild horse and to put the first touch on a wild horse. Who gets to do that? And certainly where I live now, the goal for a future home would be to have a place where I could do that, but not even a normal farm is capable of handling an untouched horse. So
tell us about that. Why isn't most farms capable of that?
Well, if you were to take wild horse, like say I go to the local BLM adoption and I pick a horse, okay, I take that one. Well, you have to actually prove to them that there's some stipulations, and there are actually not many stipulations, but you have to have a 6-foot fence. Because those suckers will leave if they can. They're not happy about being rounded up, but that's just what they have to go through. So either you take a Mustang and you train it and make it valuable, or it's just a Mustang sitting in a holding pen. So that's why it's so important to get these horses out of the holding pens and put some training into them, because education for a horse is going to make their life exponentially better, just like with people. So to take a wild horse, you have to have a 6-foot fence to be able to house them, and they have to have some shelter. They have to have a certain amount of space to move around in. But then you as a trainer, you need to have the facilities to be able to train them. Sure, I've got a 6-foot fence, but how am I going to catch it?
Yeah.
So that's what's fantastic about the Flag is Up Farms is they have the IFA gentling pens, and they are places specifically designed to reduce adrenaline in the horses. And for the, gosh, as the trainer doing it, it's so nice to feel safe. And
Yeah.
that is the other thing, that those gentling pins make both parties safe. And so, I mean, that's the biggest, scariest thing about a wild horse is their unpredictable nature, which also makes them really, really fun, but
Yeah.
also makes them kind of scary. So to have that ability at Flag is Up to do it in such a safe way and to learn and understand, I did the gentling wild horses course years ago before I even thought of doing any of this craziness with getting certified. And I was, I came home going, I may never train a wild horse, but by God, I'm going to be a better trainer to my current horses. The way that I learned how horses, their languages and how they think and how they learn and how, again, you may never go to train a wild horse, but when you go to that course or any of these courses, oh my gosh, you just learn where your eyes go, where your shoulders go, what you're actually communicating to your domestic horse. I can't catch him in the pasture. I don't know. We'll stop walking up to him like you're chasing him away, in his language. So that course just made me a better horse person in general. And then to be able to go back and do the intro course and the advanced course and all the exams. I mean, there's when you're doing your advanced exam, you're in the gentling pen and you have to take a horse and you've got to get a halter. You got to get it in the gentling chutes. Then you're going to have to get a first touch on it, then a halter. And then by the end, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, you take that thing out and lead it around.
Yeah. And it works.
Yeah. Except for your dad is staring over his shoulder, judging us.
It's true. It's an exam too.
It is an exam. I mean, he's like the test master, So I wasn't nervous about the horse or anything, but I'm nervous about your dad sitting there. Like you don't want to screw up in front of the guy who invented it,
Yeah.
You want to make him
He
proud.
discovered it. Now he discovered it. And, it's always been in there. And he gets that question a lot. Like, why didn't somebody else, start working with these concepts? And maybe there were people out there doing this in Mongolia somewhere or something, but they didn't write it down. So we've got this school going a long time. But now, so I want to talk about you a little bit. This is a congratulations to you and all that you accomplished. And I appreciate you describing some of those things you accomplished and making yourself a better horse person, even if, but you did it. You did the even ifs. So when you close your eyes and you imagine that you're teaching this concept, I assume you're going to have your own school or something. You're teaching these concepts at your own school. What do you look forward to most?
It's kind of on a small scale. I'm doing it right now. And that is the thing I look forward to the most, is to be able to help the horses and the people with their specific problem, to feel like I have an answer for whatever they throw at me, So there is a client's horse. I train horses here in Phoenix, and I teach a little bit here and there, but I don't do anything on a big scale, it's little by little. And I had a person who brought a horse and it just was like 10 problems, like the top 10 worst things horses do. He don't load, he doesn't lead, he doesn't lunge, he doesn't this, it doesn't that. And we were able to knock down every single problem that this horse has had. And he became what some would consider a willing partner. I mean, it's like we just got him to where, and it was so funny one day, Debbie, oh my gosh, it was the student's dad. The student's like 25 and her dad always came to all of the lessons. And he says to me, he goes, Jamie, I don't know, man. He goes, you should write a book about this. You should write a book. And I was like, it's already been written. I just read it.
I was just reading it. Yeah.
I just reading it.
And Jamie, you can add to that book though, too. This is what I love, that the front door is open. Once you put the muscle memory in those muscles, you can take this, and every student really can. I mean, what's Dad's favorite saying? I don't want any of my students to be as good as I am. I want them
to be
all
better.
to be better. That's right. And that's because that door is open in front of you. So what's the most surprising thing you learned about horses on this journey so far?
Oh my gosh. I think probably for me, and Monty would probably say the same thing, is two things. I learned how to breathe. Just breathe, and kind of going along with that is fast is slow and slow is fast. If you take a horse's problem and just, look at it and take a deep breath and start to think about it and slowly go up the ladder. I tell people all the time, like, you don't climb a ladder by jumping in the middle and going up. You have to start at that bottom rung. And those bottom steps go really fast if you start at the bottom and work your way up. So another thing, just breathing and just relaxing. They kind of, Denise, your head instructor, kind of picks on me a little bit because I'm like, I get a little bit hyper, a little bit excited, a little jerky with my movements. But she's like, just breathe. And the breathing thing has really helped me with the horses that I have here, the Mustangs that I do have, because it really is like Zeus, for example. He's a bit of a tense horse. And I've taught him now to do a downward transition, to go from the canter to the trot, or the trot to the walk, or trot to halt, whatever, I take a deep breath and let it out. And so I'm like really sneaky in my dressage tests, because my downward transitions are really good because I take a deep breath and let it out, and he goes into a downward transition. I'll have to touch his face. However, Debbie, I've learned that might pose a problem when I was out galloping cross country and I was out of breath, and I did that, and he stopped on cross country. Oh, no. Like, no, I still have to breathe.
Unintended consequences here.
Unintended consequences. So there's always a learning curve that goes along with. I'm like, I'm so smart. Look what I taught my horse to do. Oh, no. Not all the time. So I think that those have been really surprising, and I'm surprised at the confidence that I have when I work with horses now, because if you take the concepts and you apply them to whatever the problem that the horse or rider is having, if you just take the concepts, it's like, I was never very good at math. I'm giving you like a 10-minute answer, but I was never good at math. And with math, you have this problem, and then you have to find what equation, go through your Rolodex of equations in your head and pluck out the equation that goes with that particular math problem. Okay. And this is like that, but I know I have all the equations memorized, so it's like a math test that I finally understand.
You're prepared for.
Studied.
You studied. No, that's a good analogy. It is. It's like a little repertoire in the back of your brain, right?
Right. Yeah.
But what happens when you get to that moment where there isn't something in the repertoire? What do you do?
Do you want to know honestly what I do? I go to the university online and I try to see what Monty did.
WWM. What would Monty do?
What would Monty do? A student of mine made me a bracelet, because apparently I say it all the time. I'm like, what would Monty do? And so they made me a WWMD.
That's so cute. That's so cute. Well, and you know what? And he does the same thing. Like he remembers his old mentor, Don Dodge.
What would Jamie do? Is that what he's?
Yeah, he hasn't got there yet, but keep pushing, girl. I know.
What would Don do?
We all have, mentors in our lives that he thinks, okay, and one of the things that Don Dodge taught him, you'll appreciate this, is to stop, go sit in the corner for a bit. He used to have a cigarette, but Don Dodge did, but to smile and think about, the horse and what's fair to the horse. So I know you've got that coming. Yours is breathing first, and next thing is just stopping.
Well, I don't smoke, so we just breathe.
Yeah. Not worth starting for that. So you like the concepts. I'm really proud of you for taking those on. It is a change though, isn't it? I mean, do you reflect on those changes that you've made with your horses and wonder what sort of held you back? Or
Glenn, my co-host of the Horses in the Morning show, I think he's producing. I don't know if he has a microphone, but he actually told me that I have changed as even a person and a host in the way that I handle situations. And
she's not so mean to me anymore.
We teach that. Be nice to Glenn.
Thank you, Debbie. My life is so much easier without her picking on me every day now.
Oh, I never picked any, but definitely situations that have presented themselves. He, like Glenn said, he was like, you take more of like a teaching opportunity as opposed to.
You know what you do? You take a breath.
See?
That is true. You take a breath where you didn't. You were from Atlanta. There were no breaths.
Oh.
So no, I think that is the big difference I've seen in you. Actually, is you just take a breath and you think about situations a little bit longer than you did before.
And that is the case when last weekend I adopted my little advanced course project, a pony named Magic. Precious Magic Gal Jennings is what my 4-year-old named her. And so I took her to her first little horse show, and she's about a 13 two-hand pony. Now I'm only 5'2", so I mean, I don't look ridiculous on her, but I'm definitely big. I'm not a kid, you know. So I took her and did a little cross rail jump course. And again, this pony wouldn't have done much other than just be used in courses and then go back up to the rescue and be adopted out. Maybe you just never know. So I adopted her. I took her home. And I've given her this like foundation and this existence and this training. And I took her to a show and I was so proud. We went and did the cross rail. She didn't refuse. She jumped everything. She was super cute. And I come out of the arena and this lady goes, "Aren't you a little big for that pony?"
Oh,
and like the ATL, Jamie, would have been like, "I'm sorry, excuse me, who do you think you're talking?" Like, I would have lost my mind. But in this situation, I thought, okay, how can I handle this? And I was like, well, it's me or nobody, you know, kind of thing. Like, and I think that it's changed, the way that I deal with people as well as horses.
Yeah, with ignorance, I think. Probably, you know, it's something that they don't know. And I think that is. What do you do? What do you think about the stumbling blocks in people's minds to fully adopt these concepts?
You know, you have to do the work, do the homework. Mm-hmm. You know, I find it so frustrating when I go to see a client's horse or I hear somebody say, "Oh yeah, I tried that once." Mm-hmm. You know, you don't just do things one time. It becomes your muscle memory. So like, "Oh yeah, I couldn't get my horse on the trailer. Did you try this?" "Well, yeah, we tried it once." Well, like, no, you have to use the dually halter and you have to teach your horse to lead. You have to do the homework and get them over some bridges and tarps and like do the legwork. Mm-hmm. And I just find how many people don't continue on with the work. So the other Mustang I have, Thor, how this whole like Monty Roberts University and infatuation started was I had a horse I couldn't mount. I couldn't get on him. I adopted him from a prison, and the inmate was like, "Yeah, just let him gallop circles around you while you got a foot in the stirrup, and then when he stops, get on." And I was
Jump.
like, that's not going to work for me. So I went on to the university and watched Monty's mounting block lessons, and I was like, "Oh my God, I can do that!" And it took, repetition of like not very long, but four days in a row, 20 minutes each day. And maybe it wasn't about getting on the horse and getting his heart rate up. I'm an eventer. So I'm like, always, we want to get their heart rates up. We want to get them fit, get them working. You know what? I just had to take 4 days, take a deep breath and teach him to stand still when mounting. If I would have given up after one day, then nothing would have changed. I tried that
for the rest of for the rest of the life of the horse too. I mean, that's a long time to deal with an issue.
I use him as a lesson horse now, Debbie, and people climb up on a mounting block and I'm like, just cluck, he comes over and he comes right over to him and he learned it forever. So
and people go like, "Oh, that's just you're a guru," right?
Yeah, no, it's just do the work, do the homework, do the legwork. Every time your horse doesn't stand still, every single time your horse walks off when you don't want him to, back him up 6 steps. Let him commit to the mistake. I say, let him take 3 steps, back him up 6 and drop the reins and take a deep breath. And eventually, if you do that every time and consistently, not just once, do the work, make it muscle memory for you, and then it fixes it. So what it would say, the concepts, you just have to apply yourself. It's like something I heard in high school. Apply yourself to the method.
But it works. It actually works.
So the difference is now she's actually doing it. That's
Yeah, exactly.
She's found a reason.
It wasn't so much doing it in high school.
You can't copy from somebody's paper before class.
Yeah. Ill prepared. So what's your greatest hope now? What's your greatest hope for the future of horses in people's lives?
Oh my gosh, that's a huge question.
It is.
My greatest hope for horses is, if we can just circle all things back to the Mustangs, and we get all these dang Mustangs out of holding pens.
Oh, I love that.
And that people allow, this is going to spark controversy, I'm sure, but, unless we control the population of Mustangs, they're going to keep getting rounded up and keep putting in herds and keep putting in holding pens. And there's a lot of really nice horses that are standing amongst 50,000 other really nice horses that could be used. And so circling to that, I would like to get the horses out of there. And that's why I compete. I'm going to, we're moving up a level. We're going novice this weekend at a horse trial. And by the time this airs, this will have already happened, but I'm doing my first ever novice on a Mustang.
Congrats. Look at you. First ever novice. And you're doing it on Zeus the Mustang out of a prison BLM program.
Training. Yeah. And that's the thing is his show name is Zeus the Mustang. And I picked that for him because on the loudspeakers, they go, okay, now entering the ring, number 92, Jamie Jennings on Zeus the Mustang. And people hear that and they go, hey, what? There's a Mustang here. Mustangs can do this stuff, you guys. They're valuable, so that was kind of my point with that. So that's my long-term giant goal. My more short-term goal is to implement a system where I can help people and help horses with this whole thing. I mean, it's changed me as a person. It will change you as a person, and it will change your horse as a horse. It's just amazing.
I love you, Jamie. You're doing such a good thing for horses.
Well, thank you for being you're a pusher. And I like that about you. You've been really, really supportive and encouraging. Even when I didn't think I could do this, you and Tom, your sweet husband, were there for me. And your mom and dad have been just amazing. Just amazing. I mean, I can't believe that I can say I know you guys and I know your parents, and they're just awesome to me, and they're just great people. And I've been really privileged to be able to come to the farm so many times and to have you guys welcome me. And I appreciate it. And thank you. And I love you too.
I love you too. All right. We'll talk to you soon. You're a privilege to know. And I will see you next week.
Internship starts next week.
Internship. Yeah. You don't get any extra points. You have to still, you have to go through your internship. I don't have any influence over that.
I'll get it as done as I can.
All right. You'll do great. You'll do great. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place and learn the magic in the language of the herd.
Ask Monty, episode 112. Dear Monty, would you normally talk to a horse? Monty's answer. Sure. I might say, hey, shy boy, how you doing today? Of course I talk to him, but does he understand my words? Nah, probably not. What I mean is he hears my voice, but he has no idea what I'm saying. You cannot go out there and tell a horse to accept his first bridle, saddle, and rider using words. Their language, Equus, is silent. It's a language of gestures. I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. I've started 8 to 10 horses in a day without saying a word. Should you choose, training your horse to respond to voice commands is fine. Most equestrians effectively use voice commands. You should be aware, however, that this is a habituated response. Until trained to voice commands, horses rarely respond to any of our words.
Hi, I'm Monty Roberts, and I'm dedicated to training horses without pain. You can learn to do it too on my Equus Online University. Western, English, the beginner, or the advanced rider. It doesn't matter. You can connect with other students online too, on our forum, and there's a new lesson every week. It's a lifetime of learning for you on my Equus Online University at montyroberts.com.
There you go. MontyRoberts.com is where you're going to find everything Monty Roberts. You can follow along on social. On Facebook, it's Monty Roberts, the one with a little blue check mark. On X, as well as Instagram, Monty_Roberts. And many thanks to today's sponsor, HandsOnGloves. And if you have a product or service that you think the Monty Roberts fans will enjoy hearing about. There are advertising spots available. Reach out to Debbie via the website, montyroberts.com, and get a conversation started. So until next month, have many happy horse hours.